Went off after we continued. We took a little rest, and now we're back online. And excuse me, Commissioner. Illuminated. We now have another item, the Hillman-Morrill Township boundary concern, and it is a concern. We've had a lot of conversations about this, and I'm going to turn this over to Deb Gruber.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's more about a section corner issue. And so, as you know, this has been something we've been talking about for a while. There has been questions regarding the section corners out in this area. Back in January of 18, we had a public meeting that we brought folks that could be impacted based upon their land descriptions and how that works together. This isn't something that's in my area of expertise. It takes that professional surveying. It's much just as much of a legal issue. So we have asked for the help of our some colleagues, David Meyer and Scott Marlin, to help us sort through this and offer some advice on how to proceed with this. They've been working the past, since January, and since we brought Scott on board, to be able to help us kind of sort through this. And they're here to report back what they've learned, what they recommend we move forward with, and how that plays out into the future. And so welcome. Thanks for coming.
Gentlemen, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Mr. Chair, I'm going to, again, walk through the background. I've been here a few times, and we had a public meeting, but I don't expect each of you to be versed in the nuances of government corners. So we need to go back to the 1850s when the land in Minnesota was divided up into sections. And it started off with government surveyors coming out, and they'd run what are called township lines. That's the external lines out here. They run these lines through the land that the government had acquired, and then they would start down in section 36 in the southeast corner, and they'd start drawing the traditional 1 mile survey lines that we're all familiar with for a section. And they work their way north and work their way west, and they'd get up here to section 6, and they would, sometimes there'd be more, sometimes there'd be less land than they had anticipated based on their surveys and actual staking, and they would then estimate or conclude the survey up in here. Let's go to the next one, Deb. So what the government surveyors would do in each case is they'd go out to the sections and they'd set corners, and they were corner posts. And the surveys today, as from the beginning, are all subject to and begin with these corners that are laid by the surveyors. In theory, a section line is 5,280 feet. In practice, because of what was in the field, the difficulty they had with instruments, chains, literally I should have brought my chain with me, but I forgot it, and with the compass and so on, they did not, of course, get exactly at 5,280 or 2,640 or if you're at the north corner. But what they did do is they set posts, and they used the materials that they had at the time to set the posts. Let's go to the next one, Deb. This is pretty much what they looked like in Morrison County. When they went out, they would set a mound. They'd dig out a prairie and make a mound and put a stake right there. And then as a settler, when you came along, you would know where your boundary was because you'd find these posts. Well, as you can see, they weren't permanent as we would have permanent markers today. Many of them were lost, and we have to find them, do the best we can to relocate those corners. Let's go to the next one. So the problem today is locating the original government corners. And it's not just Section 6, it's all the sections in all of Minnesota. And this just happens to be one of the worst ones, but you got other ones in Morrison County that are a problem too. So the rule we have to go by that has been in place from the beginning, from the federal government, from the early 1800s, is wherever the corner was placed by the surveyor, the government surveyor, that's the corner. No matter what the notes say, no matter what anybody else, whatever information you've got, you try to find that corner again. So let's go to the next one. The reason the corners are important is because in a section, everything you survey is subject to the corner. For example, if you want to know how to survey the northeast corner of a section, you have to locate the northeast corner, you have to locate the north corner, you'd have to locate and then you'd have to locate the south corner because you got to draw this line. And then you got to locate the east corner and the west corner because you got to draw the south line. So in order to resurvey that northeast quarter correctly, you need to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the corners surveyed. And if you don't have the exact corner, the survey is going to be off. That's the problem. Go to the next one. At the west corner and the north corner, as the sections came together, as I said, there would be overage, there would be underage. And so it's called a government lot. They just say, well, it's not a true 40 acres, it's just close, and we're going to give you what we got. So let's go to the next one. This is the problem with Section 6, and it's to give you a bearing, this is Morrill Township, this is Hillman Township, and to the west is whatever. Okay, it's another township.
Yeah, it's another township.
Buckman, there you go. Okay, there you go. I've only been concerned. So this is the problem here. And when you start way over here in Section 1 and you come across the town line and you divide it up, these are called chains. These were not measured in feet. These are chains. They're in a true section, there'd be 80 chains in a mile. And here, as the surveyors came through, they would designate 20 chains in a quarter mile, 20 chains, 20 chains. But when they got to the end over here, they were really short. There was a problem. They only had 11 left. And that even...
Ooh. Oh, I don't know what happened here, sorry. Their Wi-Fi is out, but I'm wondering if this thing's causing a problem here.
Well, it's kind of like the lights going out.
Yeah.
Except
I have it
the lights.
on my laptop if you want to try to...
Well, it's the machine talking to the projector here.
Okay.
It says it's connected, but it doesn't look like it to me.
No, I think they lost internet connection.
Well, it should.
No?
Who turned his...
So a chain is 66 feet?
Yes,
So, correct. A chain is
Yeah.
66 feet
4 rods.
and
Yes.
broken down further into rods, which are 16 and a half feet.
Maybe you can keep going while the 11.
It's,
I'm hopefully we'll get it back here. But anyway, we get up to that north section 6. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're getting close here. There we go.
There we
So
go.
we
Thank
get
you.
up here, and from day one in 1850, it was a problem. And, talking to surveyors who spent a lot of time up there, it would have been the way the deputy surveyors would have operated is to come from the east and go west. This was just terribly swampy land. It's not like today. We didn't have the ditches and so on to dry it out. And you can tell right through here on the original survey, they're running into a lot of water, a lot of slop. And I tend to think they got over here, they got into trouble, so they jumped back to that town line and just went east. And it's hard for us to appreciate today. I'm guessing they thought this was like surveying the moon. Who's ever going to live out here in the swamp? There were trees. There was timber out here. It was important for timber, but it didn't look anything like what we have today. And I think they just figured, who's ever going to know? Just get close, get done, move on. They were paid by the corner. It's not like they were paid by the hour. They bid things. So this is about as bad as it gets. So we got a problem from day one up here. Let's go to the next one, Deb. So as I said, locating that corner is the key to the resurvey. We cannot find any evidence of the corner. We know what they put in there, but it was wood, and we cannot find it. So let's go to the next one. There are 3 states of a corner in a government corner. One of them, you can find it. Second of all, you can't find it. And the third one is called obliterated. Let's go to the next one. So in 2012, a surveyor went up there and he located a corner. And then in 2017, a surveyor hired by the county to replace corners, not just here, but in the entire county, went up there and he found evidence that the corner as established in 2012 was not what he believed to be the correct location of the corner. So let's go to the next survey. So the first surveyor, his evidence was there was a road order from Hillman Township and a county road order, and they both said the corner is sort of in an intersection of a road, which I'll show you in a minute. Let's go to the next one. The second surveyor relied on a survey done by a Batzer in 1904.
Yeah, 1901, 1903, in that area,
Yeah.
in that range.
The county board then faced the same problem you got now. People out there were complaining, apparently, and the county board hired a surveyor to go out there and said, find the corner, set this thing, get it for us. And so he went out there doing the best he could do, and he set a corner. And so the second surveyor found that survey of Batzer's, and he said, that's the corner I'm going to rely on. And the county surveyor, the recent one, who did this in 2017, also had a town order from Morrill Township that seemed to validate that position. Let's go to the next one. So this is what it turned out to be. That nice straight north line that I was showing you on the township, this is what it looked like in the Batzer survey. And this was a problem. Let's go to the next one.
Oh, it switched on my screen. There it goes.
There we go.
So everybody agrees on the northwest corner. And if you take the original notes from the GLO and that map I just showed you, it should be 2,046 feet between that northwest corner and that north corner. Next one. And then if you take that private surveyor and you take his work, and there's 1,755 feet between the north corner and the northwest corner. And let's go to the third one. Next one, Deb. Yeah, and this is what the Batzer survey that the 2017 surveyor came up with. There's 1,100 feet. So there's this huge discrepancy out there. Let's go to the next one. The government survey says there should be 2,046 feet. The private surveyor in 2012 said it's 1,755, and the Batzer survey, which was picked up again in 17, says 1,100 feet. So you can imagine anybody trying to... Yeah.
You're showing the information from 2017. Do you have a map of the 2012, what it looked like? Was it more square?
Let's go to the next one,
Are we
Deb.
getting there?
Yeah, okay. This is kind of summarizing it right up here. This is where everybody agrees on that northwest corner. There's a rock out there. Everybody agreed that's there. So here's what the surveyor said in 2012, right there.
The blue circle.
The blue circle, right, north corner per 2012. And here's my rough, but this is what it was in 2017. And that Batzer survey, there's 650 feet difference between the two. So you imagine you're trying to survey out there, and you need that north corner. Which one are you going to rely on? It's going to make a huge difference in the surveys. And that right away caused a lot of problems, and that's how it got to the board. And the last time we were talking about, well, how do we reconcile this? What do we do? Let's go to the next one, Deb. And there's a couple of slides here. This is your county beacon stuff, and you're pretty much on the beacon system using the 2012. I think. Anyway, let's hold with that one.
Oh,
yeah, that's the one you got right there. It's pretty good. So the last time around, we talked about different ways of how are we going to fix this? How are we going to reconcile? What are we going to do? And the main question we all had is, well, which one's right? I mean, you both can't be right. What can we do here to figure this out? And so the proposal was from Deb to hire Scott, Stearns County surveyor, a third party, a third surveyor to come in and say, look at everything and say, Scott, give us an opinion. What do we got here? What can we do to reconcile this? I, for one, wasn't very hopeful, but I'm glad that this turned out. So let's get to the next one after that. After this, one more, Deb, maybe two more. So this is what the law says. You are obligated to set the corners. This is Morrison County's job. By state law, you have to set those corners. You have to reestablish them per the original survey as best as you can. That's your job to maintain the corners. Go to the next one. But you have no authority to decide private boundaries. The best analogy I can tell you is like a baseball field. Your job is to go out and set the bases. for the game, then you walk off the field. You got nothing more to do with it. And then it's up to the players after that. So if that helps you think about what your job is supposed to be. Let's go to the next one. Well, it turned out that thanks to Scott here, we found that this had all been decided in 1905. There was a court case. After that Batzer survey came out in 1901, 1902, the neighbors then got into an argument, which one's right. And so the district court judge, D.B. Searles, used to have a restaurant named after him in St. Cloud, he did a very smart thing. He appointed 3 surveyors to go out and figure this out. And Batzer was one of them, the guy who did that survey, and 2 others. And we got the entire record from the court system, I think, out of Wadena, where they keep these things. Scott got it. So we know exactly what they did. We know their report and everything. And the court, the 2 surveyors, Batzer wouldn't participate, whatever, but the 2 surveyors went out there and they figured out as best they could what the original survey had meant to have happen. And there was a judgment entered in the district court in Morrison County, and the court ordered the placement of what are called judicial landmarks. These are judicial pins that say this is it for all time. Of course, our collective memory forgot, and that's how we got to where we are today. Let's go to the next one, Deb. So Scott took all of the measurements, all of the information in those court orders. He took the 2 surveys and took other surveys, and he came up with what we believe to be the location of that north corner based on the 1905 judgment. And this is the intersection. This is a county road here. I think it's called Partridge Road sometimes. And there's a town road here. And based on all the information we got, we think the corner is right there, which is consistent with the beacon mapping pretty much everybody, not everybody, but pretty much a lot of people have been relying on for all the last 100 years. That's the location of the corner. So what Scott did after we talked about it is he went back out there and put a new judicial landmark in the ground under there. And I'm going to court as soon as I get things organized in the next whenever, get in front of a judge, and have a judge reaffirm that position. So that position will be locked in as it was intended to be in 1905 forever. So the good news is you don't have to decide anything. You don't have to do anything. You did your job. You got it relocated. And now we know where it should be. It's up to private people when they do their surveys to use that corner to reconcile their boundaries out there. We also, go to the next one, there's also a question on the east corner of that section 6, which the judge also...
Northeast corner.
Northeast corner, I'm sorry.
Correct.
Which the judge also determined, so we put a new... Put a new monument there. This is all going to be filed in the county recorder's office prominently, so it's not forgotten in another 100 years. As much as you guys appreciate this, I'm sure the county board in 2100 doesn't really want to revisit this. So I think the job is done. I think you've done your job as the county board, and Scott and I are open to questions if you have any.
I need to ask right off the bat. Scott, you went to Wadena, where the master records are kept, if you will. I don't have a clue. And in 1900, and Deb, if you want to go back to that slide, you found that judgment, if you will, from a district court judge?
Correct. Well, so this is actually recorded in the Morrison County Recorder's Office.
Okay.
This is recorded, it is 5 records beyond, in the tract index. It's 5 records different from the Batzer survey. So that's how close it was.
Okay.
But it was listed as a judgment. And when people are doing land research, they don't always look for judgments. And frankly, I looked at a number of judgments in these 2-3 sections here. David helped me, his team helped me get some of them from the courts, and they didn't impact anything. So, a lot of times people aren't looking for judgments. They're looking for deeds. They're looking for easements. So that's why this was missed. And it wasn't necessarily because someone wasn't doing their job. I mean, a lot of people missed it. How many surveyors have worked in this area for how many years? So, but it is one of those things that when you have problems, you need to be more tedious when you get into to the work. One of my mentors used to tell me, when you walk the ground, if it doesn't look right and it doesn't feel right, then you need to go back and take another look at what you're doing.
And this document is factual, and David, you said you were going to go back to a district court judge in Morrison County and have it rectified, or I guess I don't remember the wording, but why would we need to do that if this is fact?
Yeah, because
Just
a
asking.
monument was set, and it's gone. I think it probably got busted out in a road project,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Okay.
And so we want it reset in the exact location and a judge to bless it. So we're going to have two things in the county recorder's records. You're going to have that map, if Deb goes ahead again, it's a certificate location, and you're going to have a judgment at this time. So
And this will be based upon that the slide before that, the
1905.
1905
yeah.
judge's
Yeah.
ruling, if you will.
Because
Correct.
I don't want to go back and relitigate. We don't need to do that. I don't need to
'Cause it's
notify
done.
the whole world,
Yep.
get into a fight about this, because the judge already said
It's
that's
done.
where it's gone. And so, as I said, you've done your job, we found it, you're done. We'll put that in the ground, and private surveyors,
How close is that to any of the 1920 or 2012 monument or the 2006? How close is this monument to any of them, or is it?
So this monument is in the same location as the 2012 monument.
Mr. Chair, it's kind of, I don't know about ironic, but if I could just layman's term this is how I understood it, and this was my input on
Layman's
it.
terms are going to be good for all of us, I think.
Because when I first contacted Scott and another colleague of his, I had to say, we have this information. It clearly is not aligning with what kind of the world thought was happening out there. That was in 2017. But I said, I have no idea how to read it. I have no idea how to approve it. I have no idea how to even go about looking at this and what it means to everybody. And so Scott initially then started, just because he's a nice guy, helping us, kind of helping me know what to ask and where to go with this stuff. But what I had said right away is I looked at the two and said, well, just find the right corner and let's just go to the judge and say this is the right corner. And David kept telling me that doesn't work. You can't do that. And so that's why we talked about and met with all the property owners. They're saying this is what our options are. These are what we have for different potential solutions for the situation that we have. That's why we talked about things like boundary commissions. That's why we talked about other options that existed. But what Scott found when he went out to do work was that exactly what I was hoping David would do at the outset of this, which was set a corner so everybody at least was starting from the same place when it comes to private surveying. And that's what Scott found, is that the court already did that. That somebody back in '05 or prior, after that 1901 survey was done, did exactly what it is that we kind of are doing right here, which is said this just doesn't add up, this just doesn't seem right, and went to the courts, and the courts already did that. So the work has been done. What we're doing is just perpetuating that and making it, reminding everybody that this has happened and this is what exists. And so that's how I understand it, and I don't know if that helps or not, but at least that.
Question too. So when you said we're out of it, like the baseball field, we're
Yep.
going to set this, so now these landowners out there, the ball's going to be in their court and say, okay, we set this from 1905, judgment made that ruling, so moving forward, what are those landowners going to do out there?
well, if they want to have their land surveyed, if there's a question, this is a monument they will use to resurvey.
And the county would be out of it, they let them.
Correct. You have really no authority to determine private boundaries.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I've got a question. I had a party that purchased land last January off of that 2017 mark, and they bought 162 acres, and they feel now that they have a chance of losing approximately 37 acres. Is that possible? Or by use of land and stuff for all these years, does that make a difference? Can you help me with that, or what's their alternative? And
Let me, I have I have cautioned Deb that we don't want the county to end up in a lawsuit. But I'll tell you, as a general principle, okay, not to you, but anything else, if someone has used land for over 15 years as their own, and depending on some other factors, they may have a claim for adverse possession of the land. And that's the best I can say to you. And Deb and I spent a lot of time on this. We don't want you, as a county, making a decision that this person or that person owns whatever. I mean, you set the base, you set the monument here, and it's up to people who buy and sell land. And if somebody thinks they weren't treated fairly in a transaction, that's why you have the courts. And maybe they sell it themselves. But
So then, David, what you're saying is that if I feel as though that I'm 37 acres short all of a sudden, that is my problem, and
Yes.
I need to go to court, to a judge, if you will. I need to hire an attorney because I don't know the language. I need to hire you because I don't know the language, and we need to go to court. And whether you decide to take my money or not, or tell me, Jeff, save your money because it's no good, then we need to have a judge say that the four corners right here are your four corners or not. That's how that's done. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. But this will help the parties. You know, however they disagree, at least we know where that north corner is. So at least they can get a good survey off of that.
Okay.
And we decided not to do the boundary commission because you found this information. Is that because at that meeting last fall, we talked a lot about the boundary commission, but we didn't know where the point was.
That's correct. And my recommendation to you now is not to do a boundary commission. Certainly if a group of people came in and said, we need help, you do have that right, but we do not need it because of this.
And Mr. Chair, there shouldn't be that need because everybody, those private surveyors are going to be working off of the same point. They may have to redo work, they may have to adjust based upon what's been found now, but they can start from the same point. That was the problem that occurred over the years, is that people were starting from the wrong point, or a different point, I should say.
So in other words, there's more information out there right now that when somebody, I can't believe somebody could buy 20 acres, for instance, now and end up with 60. That doesn't seem logical.
It doesn't to me either, but that's why we don't want to get into the individual facts of a case, because there's a lot more to it, probably.
Right.
So.
And Mr. Chair, if you recall, what a boundary commission would have done is that that would have conveyed or convened a process that would have been, you think you own this property, and everybody agrees that you think you own this, and you understand that these are your boundary lines. And then that would be eventually lotted out and blessed by a court. If two people are still arguing about where that boundary line is because they disagree on who owns which side of what fence or where that was placed or what it is, that wouldn't have been resolved by a boundary commission. That would have been a problem in that process also. So I think it's important to remember that this is the best solution anybody could have, because everybody's at least going to be working from the same point. That doesn't mean those issues where people have been arguing about where, which deer stand is on whose land or whatever it might be, that's solved by that. That's a private issue that would have been continued and would have been difficult in any resolve.
I know there's questions in the audience, and I just have to be very clear. This is not a public hearing. And I don't mean to be rude as I say this, but I will tell you, as the chair, I will listen to a question, if that's what you have. But I do not, this is not a back and forth debate or anything like that.
Could you tell me when Mr. DeLeo did that survey back there, what month and year?
I'm confident that we
have
can, but I don't
certificate-
know what that is.
Yeah,
just so you know
there's
that.
a certificate of location filed with the county recorder, and that should be on there. It looks like this, except it'll have Sam's name on it, and he filed them January this year, February, Deb?
Scott, do you remember?
I do not, but I can
Well, they can look to it.
look for that, and I can get you that information.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. DeLeo's well aware of what's going on. He's been in the loop with this discussion. He knows what's been found. He's acknowledged that to be the case, that he didn't, this is all, he's very aware of what's happening when it comes to this
Scott, would you
area.
be willing to get that date for Deb, or to Deb?
Otherwise, Mr. Chair, to keep the
It's-
county out of
yes,
this, you
again,
can
it's-
walk down to the county recorder's office.
This is all public
and get it.
information
Just-
that they-
And
Just go to
it's-
Morrison County
it's there.
Recorder and get it.
And thank you, and I apologize, but as I said, this really is not a public hearing. So I need to be square on that with everyone.
Well, Mr.
Questions?
Chair, and I understand what you're saying, and I understand where the county's point is on this, and I'm glad that we found a point. But it's still, the people that call me, it's in my area, and they get upset over the fact where they think they are and losing land and so forth. So it's not as simple as just saying, we found this and now it's our hands are washed. I understand that our hands are washed, but that these people have to work through other areas now. But in the long run, finding that point will solve all these issues at some point. And I can't
Yes,
say what I
that-
think because that's,
That's correct. I am sympathetic, I understand, but at the same time, there's not much Morrison County can do on the individual basis. And it's, my legal advice, you got to talk to your county attorney, is to stay out of it and do your job as you've done and stay out of it.
And Mr. Chair, this whole situation involved many people who were in difficult spots when it comes to building a house or understanding where they can purchase property or not being able to deal with estate matters like they wanted to because of title work. I see Larson Abstract here in the bank here. This can muck up a lot of people in a lot of personal situations, and it's tough. And so it's not to make light of that. It's not to downplay that at all. It's what is our role as a government entity, and what is it we need to do to make sure that we're doing our job to help in the long run. It may not feel like it's helping some right now, but it really is about establishing that government section corner and with the tools that we have, with the data that we have, to make sure it's correct moving forward and that everybody's working off of the same point.
And David, you're going to go back to that district court judge again just to make it cleaner? Is that really the purpose?
Yeah, because it was removed, I have to have the judge bless it to say, yes, you put it back in the exact location. And that's where Scott comes in and gives me an affidavit, says that this is the exact location it was in. Because what we have is a prior judgment, but it was lost. And so I don't want this, like I said, I don't want the board in 2021 back here doing this again, so.
how does that work? How does that work with Beacon? Beacon really doesn't mean anything legally, right?
So Beacon is a representation of the tax parcels that you have in your tax system. So it's a map. The county staff tries to get that as close as they can, but it can't be considered a survey. So we always want it to look right, and but the map is not a determination of anyone's boundary, and the county's not saying this is exactly where it is. Okay. So,
And if I may, Mr. Chair, maybe I'm going to say something there I shouldn't, but I'm going to say it anyway. Beyond the surveying business. So if someone calls us from the south side of Morrison County, hey, we disagree on this pin or this monument, let them hire somebody and be involved and find that monument rather than have the county like we did in 2017. We hired somebody to find a monument that didn't exist. My opinion.
okay.
Well, Scott, can you?
And Mr.
Scott?
Chair, yeah.
For clarification, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Just to be clear of what our responsibility is as a county board is to locate and recognize the governmental corners of the sections. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Maintain the corners.
That is
yes.
correct. And that is one of my main jobs with Stearns County, and that's the county surveyor's, one of the county surveyor's main jobs, and always has been. With Stearns, one of the things that I have is I don't do private land survey work in Stearns County. I can. Statute allows me to do anything any other licensed land surveyor can do. However, statute also gives me powers additional as the county surveyor. And part of those powers are to perpetuate the public land survey system. So one of the things that does for us is that we don't have the conflicts of setting a section corner and doing a land survey for a landowner in that same area. And I'm not saying that any surveyor has done anything maliciously. That's not what the land surveyor is about. But the perception and the perspective of coming at it from that direction is different. And one of the reasons I know to go dig a little deeper, to look for judgments, is because that's part of what I do. And it's different. So.
But this where I was going with this is I want to make sure that we as a board do the things that we're charged with as a county government entity, but also to keep our nose out of doing things that are not within the purview of this county government entity, and allow private citizens to then take the action necessary to determine the things that they want, that they may have question, discrepancy, or agreement on.
And, Mr. Chair, part of what Commissioner Windsor, you're right, there's nothing that says we have to engage in section corner monumentation. What happens if we do not is exactly this example, that it's very, very difficult for private citizens to know where to turn, how to operate, how to determine boundaries. It's very difficult for abstract companies to do their work to help those folks, or banks to lend to them, because you have private surveyors that are in disagreement, and there isn't that general authority that's trying to set this map out for everybody into the future to use to develop those private boundaries. So this is a good example of what certainly a business we don't have to do. I remember David came in right away and said, you don't have to touch this at all. You don't have to be involved in that. But I believe you as a board said, but we do, because the section corner establishment is part of the role that we have. So again, don't have to, but like Commissioner Blaine said, that is something that we do have in statute a responsibility for if we choose to take that on. And in addition to setting and maintaining government section corners, that county surveyor position has been an asset when we have questions about descriptions that come, and I see Jolene here, who does our beacon mapping. When we have questions about some planning and zoning issues, Scott has fielded a lot of those for us in the past number of months too. So yes, not a requirement, but certainly something that aids not only this agency and entity at doing business, but it also provides a sound basis for private citizens to be able to hire those private surveyors to do the work that they need done to be able to move forward with land-related issues.
But my point still goes back to there has to be at some point a connection between platted corners, whether it's been by the federal government or whatever, when land was first I shouldn't say established, but when the corners for sections were first established for townships. And that has to be, there has to be some correlation between that and our ability then to tax the land by description. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct also. So,
and which would then, that's where the purview of county government would probably end. Correct?
I don't know if that's exactly where it ends. And different jurisdictions manage land differently. What I can say about it is that The public land survey system, which is what we're talking about here, section corners.
Exactly.
That was put together, those that came before us put that together for the management of land, for westward expansion, and it was to sell land, it was to tax land, so you're absolutely correct there. It was also to be the basis for all land boundaries in the western United States, and it is. Those descriptions were sometimes different than what we see today on the ground. And that's where some of these issues arise, where, well, I bought 40 acres, but it's really 37 and a half acres. And that's because not everything is square. It's not exactly square. We have sections in Stearns that are much more out of whack than this. But when we go and we find those corners, and yeah, it's crazy. And it is unfortunate because people are connected to their land. It's very important to them. It's their private property. It's their personal property. And for most of us, it's our biggest investment that we have in our lives besides our family. It's important. It's that important. But the government also has to stay out of some of that and allow private property owners to deal with their private property boundaries. And we provide a grid for them to work from, and they work with inside of that grid.
Excellent. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, that's.
Okay.
You
Thank
summed
you
it
for
up.
continuing to ask.
And I appreciate that. I think your last statement really sums this up. We set the grid. Within that is that ability to have discussion about where private property boundary lines may be. It is not within the purview of the county or the county board to engage in those discussions or legal judgments.
Yes, and
Thank
I can
you,
agree
sir.
with that.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir. I appreciate that.
Scott, I appreciate what you did because, again, it's just a matter of knowing how to look for something where you found an investigator where maybe I could have stumbled upon it, Dave could have, whatever. That's what happens. Not saying you stumbled upon it, but this is a ruling that you found that no other surveyors could have found. It has nothing to do with, being the straight line or whatever. This is the ruling that was made back over 100 years ago, and I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, can you explain a little bit about that correction point in the section? You have your first three that are right, you have your correction one on the east side. Am I correct on that?
The very first slide is the township slide. Where are we talking, on the north and the?
Well, let's move.
North and the west.
Yeah, the
that
one
what
that's
you're
the
looking-
correction point right now. How does that happen? Okay, then you move across to the next section and it starts over where everything's correct. So that corner is the corner that has the disputes most of the time. Am I correct on that?
The technical word is slop.
So everything was laid out square in miles. The township was to be 36 square miles.
Yep.
And we all know that we live on a basketball. We know that the parallels and latitudes, when you go from north to south or when you go from east to west, the curvature, it looks more like this, and so what happens is that you have excess or deficiency because of the basketball that we live on, and the basketball we live on happens to have hills, it happens to have valleys, and that impacts measurement. It especially impacts measurement when we look at the form of measurement that the original surveyors used when they traversed across our country. As David said, they used a chain, 66 feet, and it was literally a chain that they'd pull. Well, if you're going up and down or through a swamp or, things get missed. But that's how they did this. And when they had an excess or a deficiency, the rules were They were to put it in the north, and they were to put it in the west. And that's exactly what we see here. When they went to do a section, the southwest quarter of this section looks pretty good. The northeast quarter of the section, that looks pretty good. They wanted to get, those 40-acre tracts subdivided down per quarter. And then to the west, you can see that they could not do that. It's the same thing with lakes. They couldn't get a full 40 when they came up to a lake, so they created what's called a government lot. And it's the excess that's within a section, or it's something that's not regular in a section, and they would call that a government lot. Does that help, or do you have follow-up?
No, I follow. I just wondered, I
Sure.
wanted an explanation for
Yeah,
people that are here.
yeah.
So gentlemen, on October 30th, next Tuesday, we're going to actually have a public meeting, and that's going to be in Buckman. Are both of you gentlemen anticipating that you'll be able to be there?
Yep.
And unlike today, this is not a public hearing, and I'm very clear, and so are you. And that's a public meeting, it's not a screaming match. We have some facts here today, which is wonderful, because we did not have those facts the last time that we were in Buckman at the parish center, if you will. And we will be back there again, if for no other reason to show the facts.
Yep.
Because we actually do have facts today, and that's a very wonderful thing, quite honestly. I know that it probably doesn't make some people extremely happy, and I got that. I'm a landowner, I understand that. But that's the way it is. So, gentlemen, anything further?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. And folks in the audience, thank you very much. And I apologize for the no question and answer, but that's how the operation works.
Why don't you tell them the
Thank you.
time?
6:30 in
6:30.
the evening,
Yeah.
October 30th, Tuesday, October 30th, at the Buckman Parish Hall.
And we invited those that we invited last time. There's 5 different sections that are most impacted by this discussion. And so we extended that invitation to the same folks, and all are welcome to attend. And it's really
Sure.
the
It's open
same
to the
presentation. It's really
Pretty
to
much
kind
the
of, to kind of identify what we learned, what we talked about originally, what we've learned since, and how that's being concluded. And so hoping to have a interaction there and let everybody know where we're at.
Thank you very, very kindly.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
your time a lot.
Yeah.
All right, our next item of business this morning is corrections. I see Nicole is here. Yes, ma'am.
Could I just give this to Mike Wilson?
Oh, certainly you can, absolutely. Feel more than free, come right
And
over.
I'll call you a different meeting.
Sounds good.
Sorry. Thank
No, not a problem, don't worry.
How's Carol doing today?
you. Real good, Randy. I'll call you about this too.
Thank you.
Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning. Good morning. I am here before you today because our current collection agency is going out of business. And so we need to sign a new contract with another agency. So once I learned that Grand American Resources in St. Cloud was going to be closing their doors, I reached out to Little Collection Bureau of Little Falls for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're local, and number two, they take care of the collections for the county jail. So they operate with a lot of the same people that we do. So for ease and expediency, I sent them a copy of the Grand American contract that we were working with to see if they could come close to that. Quite honestly, they told me, no, there's a reason why people are going out of business. We can't match that, but we can do our rates, and I'll show them to you. And if this is agreeable to you, because we have a full staff and we're not trying to stay in business, we are actively in business, your collection rates will most likely increase. So what you will have learned during the budgeting process and what will come up is that our revenues in supervision fee collection has been dropping this year. And it took us a while to figure out what was going on because Grand American was not communicating to us, hey, we only have one guy working on Wednesday mornings now. So until I went and stood outside their door on Wednesday morning with my coffee and waited till he showed up, I didn't know that. Neither did about seven other community corrections agencies. So we have missed some collections. However, I believe we can get right back up to speed by working with Little Falls.
So what does that contract look like for you? What are we actually losing? I guess I missed that point.
We're not really losing anything other than the Grand American contract. Originally, they had a 10% commission, and then it was 25% and then 40%. The current credit bureau of Little Falls is 10%, 50%, 30%, and it depends on the dollar amount that we're sending over. So overall, I don't think we'll see a decrease. I am almost positive we will see an increase in what we have, because they're working with the same folks who have the same addresses as who they're collecting for the jail. So they're going to have a lot of the same information. They're not going to have to be tracking down people brand new. Brian has looked, the county attorney has looked over this contract and the blanket assignment suit authorization form as well. That's a separate or farther down. He did not have, his only concern originally was there was not a termination or expiration date. Those terms weren't defined. We had that added. And then I had them remove some language in regards to making a judgment against someone's credit with the credit agencies, Experian, TransUnion, all those. Because legally, under the law right now, that cannot happen for supervision fee collection. So I had him remove that language as well.
Okay. Commissioner Blaine, you had a question.
No, I was just was wondering about the process here, if you're looking for a motion to approve this.
I'm thinking that we need to have a motion to approve it.
And I would make that motion to have the Collection Bureau in Little Falls
I'll
handle
second.
this.
Further discussion.
50% of something's better than 100% of that.
100% correct. Totally agree. Further discussion. Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Nicole, thank you very kindly.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bet.
That's the goal.
Auditor's report, and Deb is with us this morning. Good morning, Deb.
Good morning. Mr. Chair, I have a couple of quick items. The first one, we have a request from the city to purchase a blighted property. Minnesota statute allows us to convey a blighted property to a governmental subdivision for less than market value if they can document specific plans for how they plan to correct that, and they have sent us a request with a plan to demolish the building, clean up the property, and sell it to the neighbor. So their request is to purchase the property for $1 and then sell it to the neighbor, and they're still losing money on the deal. So it works out to our favor, to the neighbor's favor. The city loses a little money on it. They're going to pay $1 plus the fees for the deeds and the recording fees, et cetera. So I'm asking that you approve this transaction so that we can move forward.
I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Discussion? Gentlemen, excuse me.
Discussion on this issue, and it's going to take a blighted property out of the Little Falls, the city of Little Falls' hands, and enhance another lot that's unbuildable or
Right.
what kind of lot?
And put everything back on the tax rolls again.
So
Correct.
it'll make it a buildable lot. So it's a good deal, and it's good that we're working with the city on this issue.
Yep.
Got it, cats out.
Don't know. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you. And the other item would be warrants.
And I'd look for a motion to pay all the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Blaine?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
Wincher? And myself as an aye vote.
Thank you.
Thank you very kindly, Deb. Have a wonderful day. Our next item of business this morning is Public Works. And Mr. Bukowski is with us this morning. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies.
Hey, Steve.
Morning.
I have a number of resolutions for the board's consideration. Both contracts that are here for your consideration with these different projects were awarded in 2017. The construction's been completed. We're recommending that the board would approve the certificate of final completion so that we can move forward and make final payments to the contractor. The first one is Contract 272, which included two preservation projects on our system, County Road 228 and County State Aid Highway 4. It also included the reconstruction of County State Aid Highway 19 from Uppsala to the Todd County line. And then we had an agreement with the city of Uppsala for the preservation of Tower Road, which was a reclamation project. All of these have been completed, and we'd ask the board to approve the resolution so we can final the project.
So look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, and this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Blaine?
Aye.
Wincher? Excuse me, Wilson, sorry. Commissioner Wilson? And Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
And myself as an aye vote. That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next is for Contract 280, which was awarded this spring to Tri-City Paving, which subsequently has been acquired by Knife River Corporation. The projects include the reconstruction of County State Aid Highway 45 from Trunk Highway 27 to our County State Aid Highway 47, and then also preservation projects, resurfacing of 26 from essentially Royalton to Trunk Highway 25, County State Aid Highway 33 from the Benton County line to 4 miles south of our County State Aid Highway 39, and then County Road 270 and County Road 272. This work has been completed, and would recommend the board approve these resolutions.
Second.
Discussion? The roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Lemire?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Blaine?
Aye.
And myself as an aye vote. That motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just for your information, we will be going through a process of updating our Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan for infrastructure improvements. Essentially, where this applies to us is in reconstructing sidewalks and access to sidewalks for disabled people. As a part of our funding, of receiving federal funds, we have to put in place this transition plan. We've been following a plan essentially like this as we do new construction within our system where we have sidewalk or crossings, that type of thing that the ADA would affect. We update those to the current standards. What this does, it will look at all of them across our entire system. It puts them in a priority, and essentially it'll match our construction program. When we come in and do a project within a municipality, typically, we'll have to update the sidewalk and pedestrian crossings, those type of things, to meet those current standards. So what we've done is we've notified all the cities that this plan is out there for their review and comment. It'll also be on our website, and we'll be advertising that to take comment. Once that comment period has been completed, we will bring it back to the board for review of that and adoption. So just so you know that we're proceeding with that.
Sounds good. It sounds like a win-win for everybody at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have then.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
See tonight.
Yeah, thanks.
Then I believe we're going to move into, the administrator's got another item.
I do. I think we'll start with the Philippi brothers are sitting there so nicely that we can have a construction update first.
No, why don't we do that, huh?
All right, is that okay?
I think it would be. You guys have been pretty patient again this morning, as you always
You
are.
can sit if you'd rather sit.
Yeah,
It's up
you
to
don't have to stand. I don't care.
You learn so much.
Thanks, Pete.
Morning, thank you very kindly.
Good morning, Pete.
Oh, man, this is a- Oh, there is one thing.
Is it in here? No, right? It's not in here. I don't have it to project here, so we'll just pretend.
Okay.
Perfect. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I just passed out a current budget update for the project, and Brother Mike will give a little bit about schedule and kind of where the project sits overall. Just a couple things I want to highlight. If you drop past down the trade contractor total, I look at always the contingency line item where we started off with $497,000 in that account for $197,292, and as of today, we have written $189,868 of change orders, with a balance right now in that fund of $307,423.36. The good news is, like I said, looking at the change order log overall, we talked about this at previous meetings that encompass the generator, some of the underground piping we found in the 71 building, and kind of with where the project is at, I think we're through some of the tougher stretches of it. The main mechanical system, I mean, the boiler plant is installed. The roof is completed for the most part, and I think we're through some of those areas where there's questions. So with that, I can address any questions anybody may have on the overall budget.
Gentlemen, questions, concerns, thoughts?
I just like what he said about we're through the tough times, I'm hoping.
Me too. I will tell you that the 70s building is absolutely amazing.
Well,
And I'm being very honest about that.
Hats off, like I said, I think
Absolutely
your
amazing.
design team that you had working on that, like I said, we've done a lot of projects with him over time, and I think he does a very good job kind of master planning traffic movements and still incorporated an aesthetically pleasing building that still functions very well.
Very well. Thank you for
I
that.
walked through everything too. The biggest thing that the staff and everybody likes up there is the restrooms. I didn't have to, I just went and observed it. They look very nice.
You didn't test her out, is that what you're saying?
I didn't test her out, though.
Maybe some more coffee.
I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Go back up
It's very
there.
nice.
No, looks good.
Good.
Looks fantastic.
If there's no questions, I'll turn it over to Mike, just give a quick hit on the schedule.
Excellent, thank you. Are we ready to move in, Mike?
Just about. I get asked that question every morning, so. Good morning. Going over schedule-wise, we just started Phase 2, just getting into the demo, the removing ceilings, light fixtures, ductwork, that sort. As part of Phase 2, that was expanded. Originally, we were going to do half of the lower level. Now we're going to do the entire lower level. So that should help things out in the long run as far as getting demo out and getting materials back in where we can complete the entire works. Part of that, Phase 2 will also encompass air handlers for Phase 3, actually, and also for Phase 5, which we'll do while we're down in that lower level into the mechanical room. So just looking forward, we're looking to have demo completed, floors torn up, poured back in so we can start framing in mid-November. Oh.
Phase 2, when do you have some idea? I know it's tough, but when do you think that would be completed?
We're looking right now at about 7 months. So.
Doesn't sound tough at all. He pretty much knows. About 7 months.
What we're doing is we're also putting all the rough-ins in for Phase 3 that are going to be upstairs, so we don't have to go back in any ceiling. So the rough-ins for Phase 3, so we'll actually go up to Phase 3 area and drill holes through the floor to run pipes up, so during the next phase, we won't have to go back downstairs again.
So when you're done with the, excuse me, Mike, when you're done with the lower level,
Yep.
you will be done with the lower level.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's our goal, is to, because we'll have new ductwork running upstairs, new plumbing pipes running upstairs, new basically feeder pipes for conduit for electrical panels. So when we get upstairs, there'll actually be a stub-up pipe sitting up there ready to mount the panel down.
So Commissioner Winchester, it might take 7 months, but the next phase should go a little bit quicker because it takes 7 months for Phase 2.
That's correct.
biggest challenge or the biggest thing going forward on this phase that you think might give you heartburn?
And if he says the county administrator, I'm going to be mad.
I gave you the opening, baby.
I plead the fifth. No, it's we're cutting up floors, but, we do know where that piping's at. We can find clean outs for some of that. It's probably going to be working underneath other departments.
Yeah, the noise.
It's, the building is concrete, and any drilling, vibrates through the building, so that's going to be the biggest challenge going forward, so.
And that'll be for the next couple of phases, because it's over in that building that's occupied above it. But Mike does a good job of making sure that's managed. We have a good relationship with courts to let us know when those times are very important to stay away from in terms of drilling when they have jury trials and things. But we'll manage it. So.
Anything further, guys?
We have a building committee meeting next Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays from now, the 6th. So it'll be in a couple of weeks. So we'll sit down and we'll talk a little bit more about some details of the project and get you guys updated on that. So.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Public Works Administrator, do we have, that was the building that we were talking about right there.
That's when the work begins.
And then, do we have something else for the administrator?
I have one action item, which is to reappoint Martha Healy and Betsy Lindquist to the Central Minnesota Emergency Medical Services Advisory Committee for another 2-year term.
I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I could.
Second.
Further discussion?
Oh, look at that. That's weird.
Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
And aye. That motion passes. Thank you very
All
much.
right. I don't have any other action items, just to give you an update on where we're at with things. Beth and I did complete the open enrollment meetings. We did 15 different meetings with staff over the last few weeks. So that took some time, but it was nice to sit down and visit with staff, and I think it was appreciated to do smaller group meetings. I think we'll continue trying that approach, at least scheduling them sporadically, but probably not quite so many. But we'll move forward with that approach. I think it was nice to really sit down individually. There weren't a lot of changes, but there were some. Open enrollment is from October 25th through November 9th, so I'm going to need you guys to participate in that, otherwise you won't be enrolled. And so from that point forward, you can do it at home with an internet connection, or we can help you out in the office also. It's
Very good. Anything more?
The union negotiations will be the week of the meeting with them on the 7th. I'll keep you posted on how that goes with the deputy group. The credenzas for the phase 1 should be delivered today, actually. Hopefully they're there now and set up. There was some furniture that was missing yet in that first order that we knew was on back order. That should be delivered. So it's a storage unit for those cubes. And there's all that's left then is some different lounge furniture that was
in the hallway.
In the hallway
Yeah.
that was there. We're looking at a couple of pieces that individual departments are discovering that they needed certain shelving or whatever, which we fully intended to be in after the fact, once they got into the building, into the space and seeing what they needed. So that's all moving forward. But other than that, I haven't heard too many issues. The public certainly has provided very positive feedback in who we've spoken with regarding the project as a whole, the aesthetics of it, the look of it, but also the functionality, I think, is very well received, and it really sets us up and provides that direction and that vision that you gave regarding that customer-centric service. And also, as an additional follow-up, the strategic planning process is moving forward. We had met this summer. Brian Myers has met with the leadership group and the department head meeting, and he's come, and then him and I have worked together, and we are almost at a point where we're going to pull you guys back together along with the leadership group to talk about what we've come up with, to look at where we're at with ideas as far as immediate action plan and then longer term. So that will come full circle here. We're progressing with it. We've met a number of times, and we'll schedule a meeting with you in the near future to talk through that. So. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that is where I am at with things. Anything else for me?
Gentlemen, anything for county administration? That being said, it's time for committee reports, schedules, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Today, we're going to start with Commissioner Wilson.
What What date are we starting with?
29th of October through November 3rd.
Well, it's got to be farther than that.
The 10th,
It's November.
for 2 weeks.
November 10th. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And on the 30th, planning session at 8:30, budget meeting at 10:30 I've got following that.
No,
We don't have a budget meeting.
I don't know, but no.
No budget.
We have a budget today at 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my calendar says.
Okay.
We got a meeting at Buckman at 7 o'clock.
6:30.
6:30.
6:30, okay. On the 1st of November, I've got something with corrections that I need to go to. And she's
Advisory
gonna-
board meeting.
Advisory board meeting, because she was going to email me that.
What's the time and place?
In the morning.
I don't think he knows.
It'll be on my calendar.
Gonna email him.
TSWAC on the 2nd at 8:30. Board meeting on the 6th. And I have a building committee meeting at 1. Is that right?
Yep.
On the 6th?
That's at the
Board of
historical courthouse.
Adjustment, Board of Adjustment on the 7th,
Yep.
and that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Blaine, it's your turn, starting on October 29th, going through November 10th.
The board.
On the 6th.
On October 1st, I will be...
November 1st, I'm hoping you meant.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Slatney. November 1st, I will be in Owatonna for the monthly South Country Health Alliance meeting. We have TSWAC. Yeah, otherwise Commissioner Wilson covered me, so thank you.
Commissioner Lemire?
The 30th, HRA at 1:30 at HRA. Did you guys say Board of Adjustments on the 7th?
Yep.
Anybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then a trail meeting in Randall, 6 o'clock PM on the 8th. You got me on the others.
Commissioner Wincher?
Everything's good except on Monday, the 29th, I have a union meeting for the Great River Regional Library at 8:30, and I'll be down in St. Cloud. AM.
Otherwise, you're up to date?
I'm up to date.
Holy moly. Okay, Jeff's turn. Thursday, November 1st, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got a legislative committee phone conference. That's with Armor. On the 6th of November, we do have county board, that's been noted. I don't know where we're having county board at, though.
Great River Arts.
Great River Arts, it will not be here.
Say that again?
On November 6th, county board will be at Great River Arts Building, otherwise known as the old Ben Franklin Building.
This is not available to us that day.
Because it happens to be, what?
Election Day.
And then, just your preference for the building committee meeting at 1 that day? Do you want to go up into the historic courthouse, or do you want to go into that new IT training room? Do you care?
Let's do the new one.
Okay, we'll do the new one.
Why wouldn't we do the new one?
I would
Right.
like an email on that, because otherwise I got it written down here, historical courthouse, please.
The email's going to help with the written down note? Okay.
On the 6th, we're at
That's going to be at the IT training on level 2
Nope,
of the center building. No, I don't even know where it is.
the lower level.
Excuse me, lower
We'll
level.
be with all the cameras and everything going on.
No,
It's at 1 o'clock.
Not the
No.
basement.
we're not going to be in the basement. We're going to be in the lower level. Not the garden level, the lower level of the middle building,
Central.
central building.
Lower level of the central building.
At 1 PM.
Provided
It's at
it's
1
available.
PM
Let's
on the
just go with that.
6th. Okay, so on the 7th,
Do you have an election judge?
I can't do election judge because we're doing a building meeting,
Okay.
so I had to get out of that.
Okay.
On the 7th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Executive Committee meeting, City of St. Cloud. Okay, trails. I believe on November 9th, and Deb is gone, but I think that I'm doing voter canvassing at 9 o'clock in the morning. Is anybody else doing that?
Won't be me.
Okay, I believe I'm doing voter canvassing that day. I'm supposed to have an armor rack meeting that day, which obviously I can't be in two places at one time. And that was in Stearns County. And that is all that I have, that I'm aware of. I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned at
1 o'clock
11:13.
here.
And budget's at 1. Thank you.